All right. I started a minute early because I just remembered life is a little bit hectic at the moment, and I may well get a phone call, and I should probably silence my phone before I start because, there you go. There's a beep beep because it is live. Okay, so we're going to look at Hildegard of Bingen. It's a pretty remarkable story. Hopefully one I won't waffle too much through, but it is me, so don't hold your breath, everybody. We can hold it, but let it out again, and then in through the nose, out through the mouth, and off we go. So her dates, her significant dates, I don't mean the boyfriends that were important. I mean her birth and death dates are 1098 to 1179. That's a pretty ripe old age for being born in the 11th century. So she heard audibly a message, and it was loud and it was clear, and she didn't pay any attention initially. The thing that the order that she received was radical, to say the least, at that time and in that place. And this was what the voice said: "Say and write what you see and hear." And it was a male voice, and she ignored him. She was a nun, and she was in a German convent at the time, sequestered. She was a woman living in the 12th century. I mean, she asked herself, what was she to do with this message? How could she follow a command that was it was revolutionary for the time, and it was certainly countercultural. So because she didn't know how to respond, she didn't respond. And she ignored God's call until a day came when she couldn't ignore it anymore. She was the 10th child of her parents, and was dedicated to the church literally as a tithe, because it means a 10th, when she was 8 years old. At 16, she took the veil, as it were, became a novitiate, entered the convent of Dissy-Bodenberg, which is near Bingen and is in Germany. And that was, her calling was as a Benedictine nun. And she was then elected abbess of the convent in 1136, so 12th century. And around about that time, the visions that she had continued to have since she'd been a young girl began to grow in intensity, and were discerned as illumination of the scriptures. And this is a direct quote. "And it came to pass in the 1141st year of the incarnation of Jesus Christ, Son of God, when I was 42 years and 7 months old, that the heavens were opened, and a blinding light of exceptional brilliance flowed through my entire brain." She wrote that in the preface of her first major visionary work, which was Scivias. And then again she says, "And so it kindled my whole heart and breast like a flame, not burning, but warming. And suddenly I understood the meaning of the expositions of the books, that is to say, of the Psalter, the Evangelists, and other Catholic, small c, books of the Old and New Testaments." So not long after this last vision, well, not last, but the one that was most recent, she received a more direct or specific communication from God, which encouraged her again to take up the pen. Because, of course, she'd been told to, say and write what you see and hear. And this message was this: "O fragile one, ash of ash and corruption of corruption, say and write what you see and hear." And just to put the cherry on the cake, as it were, this vision was repeated again 3 times to her on 3 separate and distinct occasions. So again, primarily, like initially, she resisted because she was being instructed to do what basically no woman at the time was doing. As a nun, and by default as a woman in that time, most women were illiterate and were definitely not encouraged to either write or preach. And she was, quite frankly, terrified. She was definitely overwhelmed by this command that she kept receiving. And she did her best to ignore it, even with the job that she had and the close proximity, as it were, to God, until finally God basically made it impossible for her to continue doing so, because she succumbed to an illness that she believed to be a direct result of her disobedience. And she says, although I heard and saw these things, because of doubt and a low opinion of herself, and because of the diverse sayings of men, I refused for a long time the call to write, not out of stubbornness, but out of humility, until, weighed down by the scourge of God, I fell onto a bed of sickness. So Hildegard overcame two big stumbling blocks, obstacles, in order to complete or produce the massive volume of writing for which, I'd say she's remembered, but not that much. So firstly, there was the fact of her being a woman. Like, I know I'm labouring the point, but it was a game changer. It was a definite barrier, like societally, socially. And secondly was her level of education. And, certainly male theologians, I don't know if you have to say male before theologians if it's in the 12th century, had been blessed with, or definitely had the upper hand in terms of years of classical education, which would have, theoretical understanding and a practical understanding of Latin, geometry, theology, astronomy, music, arithmetic, potentially law and medicine. And she had, in fact, learned to read and write in German. No, she hadn't. German and Latin. However, her education was basic, let's put it that way, rudimentary. And a biographer of hers, Sabina Flanagan, said this: for someone to write on theology who lacked such a background and was also a woman was a bold step indeed. So she tried, she still persisted in trying to ignore the call to write, but she couldn't suppress this persistent order, this persistent request, command. And finally, while she was most desperately ill and just desperate, she reached out to Bernard, the abbot of Clairvaux, and this was a friend and a confidant of hers, and she looked for advice from him. And not only did he, he's the male counterpart to her job. She's an abbess, he's an abbot, somewhere different, obviously. He reassured her, and he also was instrumental in obtaining the sanction for her writing by Pope Eugenius, and this was an official sanction of her writing. And because of that, she was free to record the visions that would eventually make up 3 comprehensive theological works. And these are Scivias, in parentheses, Know the Ways, Liber Vitae Meritorum, which is the Book of Life's Merits, and Liber Divinorum Operum, the Book of Divine Works. So Scivias, the first of those volumes, 600 pages. She wrote it over a period, a decade, and she would switch between, juggle the writing and the editing with all of the other duties that she had, similar to Catherine Luther. This lady was head of the convent. There's a lot that goes into that. And this work is divided into 3 books again. So with each book, there's a similar format and a description of the visions, and then an exegesis or explanation that she had received from God. So actually it isn't an exegesis, it's an explanation. So she swung between, definite, concrete language and abstract, and covered a massive range of topics. And these included the fall of Lucifer, Adam, the church, redemption, creation, sacraments. And she finished up with an apocalyptic ending on the final, or the last judgment, and the creation of the new heaven and the new earth. In her next work, in Liber Vitae Meritorum, i.e. the Book of Life's Merits, that was written between 1158 and 1163. And that is mainly concerned with the vices that plague all of us, humans, basically, over the course of our lives. And this book entailed details of 6 visions encompassing 35 sins, and helpfully had the corresponding punishment and penance for each one. Just thinking, it's possible that some people could only muster 15 and then had the ideas for another 20, but whatever. So yeah, because of the emphasis on punishment, some critics of this work view it as a preface or a pre-runner to the development of the theology of purgatory, and that would become more prevalent later, actually, in the Middle Ages. So the third part of her trilogy, a theological trilogy, Liber Divinorum Operum, the Book of Divine Works, that's considered her greatest achievement, the most mature piece of writing, and that is comprised of 10 visions, and the central theme focused on the opening chapter of John, so John chapter 1. And she didn't only produce theological writings. Her medical and scientific writings are as intriguing, if not more, than her theological works. They're not in the same format, certainly, with the visionary and then the explanation. They don't reference any divine source, and they're written in a mixture of German and Latin. And because of this, some question whether she is in fact the author. And the works included Physica, which is natural history, and Causae et Curae, causes and cures. There are many who question whether these are based on her actual medical experience and observations, or were just a compilation of, medical law from the locality or ancient practices. So Physica, that includes 200 short chapters on plants, and these are followed by sections about the elements, jewels, precious stones, fish, birds, mammals, and reptiles. And throughout the book, she gives practical, dietary, medical, other advice, interspersed with bits of local things of local interest. An example, she tells her readers of that a peach tree was more useful for medicine than for food, because the bark, leaves, and kernels can be used in remedies for skin infections, halitosis, and headaches, just in case you're wondering. Cherry seeds, she said, on the other hand, if they were crushed and mixed with bear fat, I don't believe they have that in the supermarkets, were used to treat skin disorders. And if they were eaten without the bear fat, yay, I'm going for that option, they would kill intestinal worms. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's handy. So Causae et Curae, this was slightly different from Physica in that its discussion was more, it contains more than 200 specific maladies, i.e. illnesses, diseases. These included baldness. I don't really think of it as a disease, but migraines, asthma, nosebleeds, sterility, and epilepsy, and the cures for them. And she didn't, although she didn't avoid human sexuality within her works, she approached it poetically and pragmatically, without what one would expect, a prudishness of a nun, that was absent from the work. Not only did she describe like a sexual intercourse, I don't know why I feel like I'm blushing because it's a nun, and conception, she also included, this was, let me say, revolutionary for this time in history. She included a section on the nature of sexual pleasure from the woman's point of view. And I'm certain that any gentleman who came across this would have believed that she was like hallucinating, deluded, like, what's that? So the result was that, this book, Cause et Cure, addressed human sexuality more comprehensively than any of the writings of any of her contemporaries. And to be fair, that didn't need to be very comprehensive, if you see what I mean. Okay, so while she worked on the third, which was Liber Divinorum Operum, she also wrote a number of, poems, letters, a play, musical works. The play was Ordo Virtutum, which was the play of virtues. And this was, performed at her convent. And during this time, she travelled to various monastic communities in Würzburg and Kitzingen, both to preach, which again, she's a lady, and it's 1160, or the 1160s, and she went to Trier, where she preached in public, which was even more unusual. She travelled twice more to preach to Cologne and Verden in 1163 and 1170. She went to Zweifelden. Okie dokie, we're getting there. So her visions, the ones that she received from God, I mean, she didn't receive them from anywhere else. The visions she received from God impacted her, not only, it didn't only impact her writing, but also her life, obviously, and the lives of the nuns that she was abbess over. And while she was writing Scivias, if you remember the first volume that I described, she suddenly, just out of the blue, announced that she had received a command from God to relocate the convent from Dizzy-Bodenberg to Rupertsberg. And that was around 20 miles away. Okay. The monks strongly, they weren't up for this idea. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. Right, so, yeah, they weren't really that happy about it. Neither were the parents of the young nuns in her convent, and they couldn't work out why. She would want to move, everything from the relative comfort. They had vineyards, they had a very scenic surroundings, and move off to this bare bones existence, basically, with far fewer amenities, not necessarily comforts, because they are nuns. So they also accused her of being delusional, which is not a rare charge against strong women, really, but certainly ones who say that God has told them something, and I know that because God's told me a couple of things, as it were. So when an abbot, she had this, while she was up against this pretty strong accusation and opposition, she collapsed into illness again. And when an abbot, not the confidant one, a different one, saw the extent of how much she was suffering, he decided and declared that her illness was a divine intervention, and she was granted permission to move the convent. So, yay! She bought it, she didn't rent, and she and 20 of the nuns went on foot, if you're not too shy, over a day's journey, from this massive stone-built monastery, well-established, well-respected, to Rupertsberg, just some mashed up old gaff. They said, this is a quote, "What is the point of this, that noble and wealthy nuns should move from a place where they wanted for nothing to such great poverty? And this is what she wrote later. But, she says, we were awaiting the grace of God who showed us this place to come to our aid. After the burden of these troubles, God rained grace upon us. Oh, that's nice. So towards the end of her life, when she was in her 80s, because again, like I say, God definitely granted her a long life, or a relatively long life. She received word, like from God, allowing her to bury a nobleman at the convent. I mean, that's not utterly out of the norm. However, this nobleman had been excommunicated. So that made stuff a bit tricky in those days. So she defied her superiors. She hid the grave when they ordered that the body be exhumed, which, i.e. dug up again, relocated outside of hallowed ground, I guess. And as a result, the entire convent community was excommunicated. So they weren't joking, they weren't taking this. They basically condemned 21 ladies of the church to hell, which is certainly what they believed they were doing. Most disturbing to Hildegard, because obviously she's got God on line one, basically. They banned the singing. That was what she was pretty upset about. And she complied with the punishment. She avoided singing and communion. She went along with their punitive measures. However, she ignored the order to exhume the corpse. And instead, she appealed to higher ecumenical authorities and succeeded in having the punishment lifted 6 months before she eventually passed away, which was 1179. So she got them all back into heaven, basically, if you know what I mean. So now, Hildegard von Bingen. She was a theologian. She was an abbess. She was a visionary. She was a writer, a naturalist. That's not what you're thinking. I don't think it is. Not a nudist, a naturalist and a composer. And she founded a convent. Let's have it right. She travelled. She preached in public. She interacted with the Pope at the time, Eugenius. She corresponded with the Pope. She corresponded with bishops and, had dealings with other ecclesiastical leaders. She produced a body of work, a corpus, as it were, that just exceeded most of her male counterparts or contemporaries. So she's got this list of accolades and accomplishments, and they wouldn't look out of place in the 21st century, on somebody's CV. However, let's think it. She was born 9 centuries ago. Don't you think to yourself how many people have lived, loved, died, and just almost passed out of memory? They just keep dying. Sorry, okay, thank you, Jesus. Right, so this is the time we're speaking of when she was born, certainly, and lived, that most women couldn't write, they couldn't read. I mean, there was a lot they couldn't do. It's not that they were unable, they were just not given the chances. And she's not by me, but she's celebrated by many as a feminist forerunner. The Roman Catholic Church indeed recognized Hildegard as a prophetess. However, she was not, it was literally 10 years ago, from now, that she was officially made a saint in that church. And that was Pope Benedict XVI ordered her name to be inscribed in the catalogue of saints. She was canonized. Well, she was already she was included in the list. If your name's not to hand, you're not getting in, that kind of thing. And that was in the October of 2012. Benedict also named her a doctor of the church, which is meaning that her teachings are recommended doctrine. That makes her only one of a quartet of women ever to have that accolade. And the others would be Catherine of Siena, Therese of Lisieux, and Teresa of Avila. Like that's it. That's them. And there's Hildegard. And that's that. I don't really want to have to join the Roman Catholic Church to try and I'll just crack on with what I'm doing. Either way, you don't have to consider her a saint. You definitely don't have to consider her a feminist to know that, like, as women of faith go, she's pretty big in the game in my book, which, it's a little book. Sometimes I write in it in crayon. But 9 centuries later, I can feel maybe she's overlooked somewhat. Ladies certainly are sometimes, I'm sure it's unintentional, but like just overlooked. She is an example of like trusting God against the values, the perceptions, the prevailing trends of her time period and like the customs in her location, the society to which she was born. And that's pretty important to think of, because God's word doesn't change, but trends and fashions and fads, even within the church, they do. But he is unchanging. So, yeah, she's pretty inspirational in terms of having courage. Courage is like, I want to say it's an attractive quality, but that's not quite what I mean. I mean, it is. Certainly, like cowardice is an unattractive quality. But what I mean to say is she wasn't actually courageous, if you see what I mean. She leaned on God to, like, she was reticent at the beginning. She was trying to find a way out of it, which is what I do. Like if it doesn't seem like it's going to slot neatly in, depends actually how loud, like how much God is prodding you with something. But yeah, it's understandable that she was like, what? Just like Moses. She's like, but what if? And what will I say when they say this? And when God tells you, you better just get on with it, basically. Or not, you can just be really, really uncomfortable while you wait to realise that Romans 8:28 is a thing. Either way, her courage, mahusive. She had perseverance. She had trust and faith. And this was against what, like from her vantage point, were like, I can't think of the word, insurmountable, that's the word, obstacles, like definitely massive odds, as it were. Eventually, yes, like Jonah, eventually she did what she was instructed. She listened and she obeyed. She wrote and spoke about what she saw and heard. Anywho, that's Hildegard, and the picture of her, like, I mean, she's commemorated visually, but not much for like somebody who's so big in the game. Anyway, I'm back now. I could see the chat and it all looked rather exciting, but Anyway, you all right? Any questiones? Any questions? Even if you're an English speaker, any thoughts on the lovely lady, as it were, or just anything really? Because I've got a few minutes. I don't even want to know. I'll look back through after what's occurring. You are a K mug, Jay. I don't know. Yeah, I'll get some merch. I'll get right on it. James, is that for me? I don't really have any on them. Like I don't think I'm even familiar. So yeah, unsure. But yeah, someone talk to me, because no idea what is going on in my life. No, Rabbi. So really good company. That's good. Good night, Ivan, by the way. Right, now I've lost the thread. My brain just went so far away somewhere else. So yeah, if you want to, like, anyone can start from the beginning and tell me what's going on and what's being spoken of, that would be lovely. But yeah, prodigal son, if you're not bad at art, if you sort it out, I'll put my stamp on it, as it were. As one more, oh my god, the question. Well, I'm sitting here like a donut, so on you go. Really? That's what you got? Really? I'm going to pretend that did happen. Abstract illusion. Yeah, it's quite a charming way in which, various saints are like referenced. They can be like even their stories. Well, it's the same God. It's the same like journey from uncertainty, I guess, to faith, etc. Prodigal son. When I say any questions, mate, I know it is, but that's not what I'm here for. Like, cut me some slack, love. I know what it is. I laughed when you said it the first. I know what you mean. Yeah, I'm familiar. But I'm more familiar with theological stuff. So get your brain cells, get them together. And if you've got a question about, I don't know, not necessarily sainthood, because I don't think I'm going to get there somehow. Not with not with my patience as it is. Exactly, oh God. See, someone's loyal. Someone's giving me a lol. I know, they're just horrific trolls, a lot of them. Very good, son. As you were, sir. Well done. Well done. No more. I'm used to being ignored now. People used to love me. And then I must have done something horrifically wrong. James still loves me. Jimmy Johnson, I reckon. James, so have I, mate. I'm a geezer. Yeah, I've asked a couple of times. I mean, one day I'll get that thing. I thought you were going to bed, Ivan. What's going on? Right, someone turn his light off. No, I don't believe I've heard of him. I'm not really, to be fair, like obviously I'm not a Roman Catholic. Protestants have a pretty different view of what constitutes a saint. I mean, we do include, I don't know if there's any been rejected, like from the annals, as it were, but we believe, like as Paul said, he writes to the saints in Ephesians, like, I don't know, like just Christians, those who are sanctified. But it's nice to be recognised for service to God. Oh, sorry, Ivan, I wasn't chasing you up the stairs to bed. Raybong Joan, shut up. Shut the front door. You know how to cause a stir, didn't you, sir? I hope you're very well. I hope everything's all right. I feel like maybe I went to phone you and maybe life got in the way, or I couldn't get through, or I know I did. Either way, you have the number. You're welcome to use it. Good to see you. I'll do a little prem soon. It's just that I'm kind of waiting on a phone call, so I could just chit chat now anyway. But if my phone does ring, I'll drop you all like a sack of hot spuds, as it were. Not because I don't love you all deeply, but because life is terribly grown up at the moment with important, literally life ending stuff. So yeah, you got away with words, prodigal son. Shut up, Joan. Well done. I just started another round of self-flagellating brain fudge literally yesterday. It's whizzed through some lectures. Trust me, on 1.5 speed, obviously. Oh, I'm so pleased, yeah. Oh, what really? Oh, you did. You're going to be out. It keeps you off the streets. You need to do some, I don't know, like postgraduate. I don't know. You may find that you have more time than you used to. Nice. Thank you, Bruce. It's very kind of you. I like your can-do attitude. I was going to say, I've been getting notes left, right and centre. I was like, well, I've been perceiving notes. But brilliant. You will see me there. You will see me there unless I see you first and come up behind you. And then you'll still see me. Okay, abstract illusion is saying basically what really constitutes a saint or a prophet or a prophetess, like nowadays, because they note that some of the titles are used pretty loosely. Yeah, like I say, the Protestant view that I know, because definitely Protestants are varied and literally diverse. Because I mean, sometimes all we've got in common with each other is that we are not about the indulgences. I don't mean in real life. I mean the pieces of paper, the get out of purgatory free cards that they were flogging to build that church that Luther really got the upper bar. Me personally, I think sainthood, I mean, to be canonized, as it were, by the church, to like special recognition is one thing, but I'm of the opinion that we're all sanctified to a greater or lesser extent. Obviously, even those saints when they're alive, there is no perfection. I don't believe personally. I know the Bible kind of alludes to it and says one must like attain or attempt, but come on, I think that's like when you're glorified, as it were, when you're like your glorified body. I don't think there's any perfection to be had. Not around this way anyway. Not in my house. Definitely not today. I've been having oh gosh. Yeah. Life. Don't you just love it? Oh, it's just so lifey sometimes. James Johnson, you mean you told fibs to people of the opposite sex and you in a position of authority? I mean, if you're a Protestant, you technically it wasn't really a fib, but it's not actually, But I mean, did it work? Did it get? Oh, what's the guy straight past you into the club? Okay? I'm assuming they were on their way out. Rory, will I be going back to Canada this summer? I probably, to be honest, yeah, I'm going. Cherokee, sorry, I couldn't really justify. I don't think that I could, because it's a very special place with very special people. There's my justification. However, the price of the tickets goes like whoop, like that, like an airplane, in fact, at a certain point. So I am going. Just have to press the button, because each time I check, like the money fairies have been adding little numbers on. But yeah, I just got a few little things to do first, like double check I've got somewhere and people who love me there, and then I'll be off ski. But not like this minute, Rory. So don't panic. Cherokee. Oh, just seeing your name makes me feel happy. I don't know how you do it, kid. Yeah, I don't know how you do it. Bob and Usman and Asif got kneed in the back. I don't know how you even knee someone in the back initially. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. But he was kneed in the back. And yeah, Bob and Usman. Like some sort of, I don't know, like some sort of weird comedy, like a peep show kind of cringe comedy factor. I love you too, Cherokee. Oh, I need love. Sorry, I was getting so dramatic. It's not even like chocolate time. Life is just like one thing after the next. Just it's on a roll, and Yeah, I'm just rolling over, it seems. I don't know. But yeah, it was not Usman, sorry, Asif got arrested and driven away by members of Her Majesty's Constabulary. What's that word? Abstract illusion? I don't. It's either a phonetic renditioning of a word or I don't know that word. No, my lips were moving then, so I can't even. What did he do, June? Just loves Jesus loudly. I don't know, to be honest. This got relayed to me from JC because I was in my other spiritual home at the time, and there was football on in my defence. And yeah. Rory, do I think it's difficult to love everyone? Yeah. It's not difficult to, like, the people who God puts in your life, like there's no accident with any of that. Like God doesn't send them along and then go, oh sugar, I forgot that you're not gonna, oh no. Like it's, the problem is with you, if you can't, not you personally, Rory, the problem is with me, because the person it seems hardest to love is yourself, like myself. So that can cause problems with whoever comes along. It is difficult to love people who, for example, like Boko Haram or ISWAP. However, not as much as, I mean, if I'd have tried it when I wasn't a Christian, I wouldn't have given the two short chisels, as it were. But now it's not as difficult because it's what you consider love. Like, you don't have to be in love with them. You don't have to consider them as brothers or sisters, even because they're not saved. You just, for me, I just like break it down to similar to like pedophiles and serial killers and really like odious like crimes that you hear about, and just like, oh, if they don't need love, I don't know who does. Like they just need it, like desperately. Doesn't mean you approve of what they do, doesn't mean you have to like them, doesn't mean you have to feel warm and fuzzy things about them, but what you do have to know and remind yourself of excuse me is that they're made in the image of God, firstly, and that even an all-knowing God who knows what their disgusting and like horrific crimes are going to be before they're even born, loved them enough to die for them as if they were the only person ever. I mean, it's easier to love people who love like Jesus. It's not always. Like some of them are dicks. Let's have it right. Like because God meets you where you are. Like some people are further down their spiritual road, and other people are just like babies. But you wouldn't like have a grudge against an actual baby or a toddler. And some of our emotional like responses, mine included, definitely are, they're not being like driven, as it were, by the adult rationalish self. They're, the whole shebang is being, if it's something to do with love, it's over you. It's a little tiny child monster version of you. Did I say monster? I meant cutie. If you do hate anyone, you're a murderer, as you know. So, see, you don't even have to try. Like, I mean, I don't even go there a little bit. I just really don't. I feel like I get angry. Oh, I get angry. Today I got really angry. And I kind of had a little, like, I don't know, like, could have been God speaking to me, but I've also got like a compartmentalized, like I've got a part of my brain that watches how the other part is doing things and heckles me, like, gives me pointers and stuff. But yeah, as I was getting more and more furious, I think the only adequate word is like I had another sense of It's just difficult when you can't even have a proper rant, like, and get really angry without like the little quiet voice or the goodness, like God saying like murder in your heart and all that. Because I wasn't hating, but I was irritated. Joan Modine. Last time I see him, I basically stopped, dropped, and rolled. Did a bit of a Charlie's Angel kind of move, and I don't think he see me, or he did see me, and he was busy apologising for the last time he was a melt. But I've got something lined up on my other channel, this channel, like a prem that's got Mo in it, but it hasn't got me in it, but it does have someone else getting really irritated with him. It's from a while back. But yeah, James, yeah, I think that it's not everybody. Some people have no audible narrative going on in their head at all. Like they read a book and they don't hear the words being read out. Like when I read Christian Prince's book, like I've got one up there, I hear it in his voice because of the style of the writing and stuff. It's funny. Like, but some people have silence in their head. They're more like picture based. And in terms of like compartmentalized people in your brain, yeah, it's a lesser known, like it's a lesser experienced phenomenon. But I had it, I have it, and she's quite funny though. This voice, as it were. But this is all too much of my personal life to be. You know what I mean? Yes, yeah, it's more usual. I won't say normal, but to hear when you look at words on a page or, you know, glance up at a street sign, it's usual unless it's something you're so familiar with that you see it every day. More like reading. Yeah, it's usual to hear the words being spoken in a non-verbal, like just an auditory hearing of it. Yes, that's usual. No, the human mind can't even. Yahweh alone sees into the hearts and minds of men, Bill, and that includes, you know, songs. Daniel, I'm going to go with. It's such a shame I'm not Muslim because I could say there's that bit where it says, "Okay, remember when we said it's okay to eat yogurt at midnight, listening to some theology." Nudge, nudge. But I'm going to go with yeah, because halal and haram are redundant terms for me. I'm going to say it's a-okay though, if you like yogurt and if the size of that moth, but it's on the outside. Do I look like I'm acting tough? Sorry, it was looking at me. Yeah, I don't know if it's kosher. I don't really, yeah. Cherokee, nice. I knew I loved you for a reason. I have like literally, you know, like in the like comedy, like music halls, I get heckled by music sometimes. Yesterday, I can't even tell you the title of the tune because it's got a sweary word in it. But it's even the tunes that I wake up with that are playing in my head as I like rise up into consciousness. They stay in my head until I either have to go and find them, like to see what the words actually are, because sometimes it's just a loop of the chorus or something, and always without fail the lyrics will be like relevant, like my brain is trying to send me a message, and once I get the message then the tune stops playing. So yeah, try doing it, Cherokee, I promise you. Try it, listening to the lyrics, and one bit will and you'll be like, oh, that's why. But yeah, it's nice when it's like poignant stuff. It's yesterday's was just embarrassing because I'm just getting heckled like by my brain. Someone's got to do it. It might as well be me because it is funny. Some of the stuff that I like, especially if I'm ever feeling vulnerable or like a bit girly or something, I just get this like it's just a cope, like a defense thingy, but I have to be defensive against my defense mechanism. Yeah, that's an easy. Yeah, Stephen Fry's got a brilliant reading voice. I like QI actually. I watched some clips of that recently. I miss that he doesn't do it anymore. Prodigal son, bro. He's here all week, everyone. There's chicken at the bar. Nah. What about the potential for them winning, James? I don't do them anymore. Yeah. If I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. I don't know who that's a quote by. Oh, I never thought of doing Judy Dent. I don't have really many options. It's literally my voice, but sometimes funnier, and sometimes just drives me up and down the outright, and round it. Is gambling a sin, Rory? In and of itself, no. In and of itself, very few things are a sin. Blasphemy in the spirit is a sin. Killing, not necessarily. Yahweh makes a place for the manslayer if it's a killing that doesn't have any motive, like if it's an accidental, like manslayer, including the title. And he tells them, build a place in the center for these people, and then when the judge passes away, literally, they can come back out again. I'm going to come to you, abstract illusion, I promise you. So in and of itself, no, it's the motives, and I believe that God isn't easily fooled, obviously, even though we try sometimes. Sex is a sin sometimes it isn't. Like there's another thing that, there are certain things that are overtly sinful, but again, like smuggling, sinful. But what if you're smuggling Bibles into a place where, like, the church doesn't have any access to God's word? So I firmly believe that your motives, and your brain is very devious. You're supposed to keep, take captive your thoughts, but I was telling someone a long time, it feels like years ago now, but you can use simple stuff to avoid. For example, you can fall in love and then basically be overly lustful because it takes away from the vulnerability of having the kneeling and all that shit. Just saying. So yeah, gambling, no, it depends. If you make it your idol, yes. If you it depends on how you view it, because life is a bit of a gamble, really. But Rory, I'm saying come out of the casino now, kind of thing. Yeah, I hope that answers you. Abstract illusion. Do I have any advice on how to study and memorize Bible verses? Okay, brilliant. Right, so YouVersion. I think if Armor of God is still here, I don't know if Cherokee's got it, but that may be a tall order because Armor of God might not be using the same device. But either way, there's a thing called YouVersion. It's in your app store. It looks like a little brown Bible book. Download that immediately if not sooner, and then look for K-Soko Films and add me or friend request or whatever their terminology is. And within this construct, this app, there's all different versions of the Bible. You have a daily verse that comes. You can do Bible plans with other people. Take note, anyone who's doing a Bible plan at the moment and who may be slacking, I am looking at you, sir. Yeah, and within that you can. That's all right. Oh my God, I was talking to you anyway. Within that app, you can, if you just literally tap a verse, it will underline itself, and then you can highlight it, and all of your highlights will be saved, different colors. I like it. You can make little verse images. The other thing to do is meditate on the word. So with me, eventually the verse references will slot themselves into my brain somehow, potentially via my ear holes because my mouth's still moving. Usually the Holy Spirit just brings up a verse for me. Like if I'm debating or if I've prayed for the words to say, I get the verse, I hear the verse kind of thing. Or I just think, that verse. I don't know how it works. But I don't know what the verse is. I just know what it says. I don't know the Colossians 2:8-ness of it. You right, Chris, mate? Good to see you. So yeah, a good way to do it is go through, I mean, you can literally go on a search engine and type in God's promises. I would advise all of you, actually, and not that you ask for my advice, who do I think I am? However, listen up, kids. God's promises, Old Testament, New Testament, doesn't really matter. You might feel moved by this bit you'll read through. Some of them will be more like of a blessing to you, as it were. They're all blessings to you, but like it will resonate with you. Mine are Romans 8:28, definitely, like all the time. Jeremiah 29:11-13. It's just such a blessing. I can't possibly tell you. Like, I don't know what I'd do about it, kind of thing. Well, when I remember it, when I've stopped spazzing and over dramatising and catastrophizing and everything, because girls got to have some fun. Yeah, find those and then just like print them out somewhere, write them down. If different people have different learning styles. Some people learn much better by hearing things. Some people learn by writing it out by hand again, like by rote repetition. I learn best, I feel, when I'm teaching it. Like I can confirm to myself that I've got this now by being able to make it simpler than it was when I learned it, if that makes sense. Don't hold me on the simple bit. But yeah. So yeah, repetition, write it down, have it as a screensaver on your phone. Like I say, on this app, you can make the verses into pictures. You can choose your own pictures from your camera roll and have the verse imprinted on that, or they've got some pretty snazzy ones. Anywho, Bill, not per se. No, I haven't done it. I wouldn't want to. But no, he hasn't got, even if you're a Jew, it hasn't got a cloven, what is it? Like it hasn't got a cloven hoof and it doesn't chew the cud. So not that I'm aware, no. But obviously, culturally, it's a pretty niche menu. No problem, prodigal son. I do have that effect on certain gentlemen. I can't be asked. I just cannot. Abstract Solution, you are more than welcome. It's my pleasure. In fact, have I spoken to? I married a 3-year-old. Not last week. He's always like, as I walk past, I catch him eyeballing me at the corner of my eye, or like, because I've got the camera there mainly, like I can just see him like shifting about behind me. He's got a photo of me on his phone. I mean, and one of Hatton. Don't even think it's an overly sexualized thing. I think it's potentially so he can show other Muslims and say, this is the one. Which is not, it doesn't fill me with confidence about his motives, but God fills me with confidence anyway. So any weapons formed against me, etc. What can you do? You have to just lock yourself, like just hide under your bed for the rest of your life. No, it isn't anything with a poor, Rory. It's nothing to do with that, in fact. It's certainly not. We're not beholden to that covenant and those dietary requirements because of Mark chapter 7. Nothing that enters a man by the mouth can defile him, because it just passes away into the draft. Only that which comes out of your heart and leaves your mouth can defile you, like ritually. It's not about paws, it's about hoofs. There's a slight difference. A paw has got pads on it and like nails, as it were, like a dog or a cat or I've run out of things with paws, like a lion or a tiger. But a hoof is like a camel or a cow or a sheep or a goat, and it's not all of those. It's only bi, like I don't know, a split hoof. And if it has a split hoof, it also has to chew the cud, which is like I guess grass. So it's a pretty specific list, and also it's not the only animals that were forbidden to the Jews. Prodigal son. You can do what you like, though. Do what makes you happy. Right, James, I will okay that comment because I know my admins are busy-ish. Yeah, that's Chris Mac. Search engine it. You'll find it. James. Jimmy, as it were. Let's not find out, babes. Just don't do it. I mean, maybe one day we'll talk in the comment section or something, but it's only an outward. God isn't. I don't believe he's swayed by things like that. I feel that it's not. He doesn't seek for us to, like, without personalizing it. Like Jesus says, people will hate you because they hated me first. The darkness does not accept the light. I know you are, babes. However, we don't have to make people hate us. I mean, it'd be awful if it was struck by lightning. Awful, or set on fire accidentally, compared to all those churches in France that are desecrated and have excrement smeared on the walls and the crosses smashed. But the fact is that there's still buildings. What the people feel that they're doing is attacking Christ, and that I mean, we're vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. They're going to get their comeuppance, and they're either their legs are going to break and they're going to gnash their own tongue off when every knee bows and every tongue confesses, or they're going to get a massive dose of the Holy Spirit, and that's pretty painful, depending on how much Satan wants to keep you as his own little moonbeam. So yeah, I'd say no. I'd say give it a swerve, Jim. If I were you, or definitely if I was said in public, I'd say like that. Definitely nitto on the chit chat, that sort of stuff. Okay, Cherokee. Blimey, Cherokee's gone old school, Mom. She said, let's underline this point. She actually said, let us, but that sounds even more school mistressy. Let us underline this point. It's a shame you can't underline in type. Cruelty is sinful. Abuse is wicked. The Bible makes that clear about animals and those who care for animals. The Bible also says that all animals belong to God. Hear, hear, madam. Yep, definitely. I mean, everything. I feel that I know that if we have the ability to differentiate with not even grey areas, but our application of the law is nuanced and takes into account people's personal circumstances. For example, if one is a magistrate, and I don't know, somebody comes in front of you with something that's from, when they just became legally liable, as it were, like late childhood, early teens. They don't have the economic prowess to be able to pay the things. It's a long distance thing. They've got maybe I don't know, like 6 children with them in the court, and that they're genuine when pleading poverty. Doesn't serve any purpose to punish them by taking food away from their children. So God is so, like, his ways are so far above our ways. If we can have compassion and kind of like a nuanced understanding, even though the law is the law, it's human beings who have to mete it out, as it were. So I believe that God, I mean, if someone is suffering a mental illness and is delusional and potentially performs an act of cruelty, like, God certainly takes into account that fact. Like, it's not just you do this and it's only blasphemy of the spirit that is like a red line, as it were. Jane, have a Kit Kat, mate. Take a break. It's just incessant. It's incessant. Bin it. Give it to the cat. I can't be asked. I can't do it. This day is farcical. It's just all stressiness and then silliness. But I rather have the silliness. to be honest. Right, I got a skedaddle. I just realised I better make this phone call if no one else is going to, because I have to sort something out. I'm sorry to like hit and run, as it were, but I will do a prem shortly. But let me just you know, perform my very grown-up duties that I have to do before Cinderella goes rolling past my window. So yeah, all right. God bless you, love you lots, and hopefully, well, I will see you soon in a different prem. All right then, I'll speak to you soon. Ciao. Oh, I've got to press the second button. Ciao again.